You don't lose your kindness when you choose yourself. You lose yourself when you don't. I know you. You've been the one who smiles through discomfort. The one who says yes when your soul is screaming no. The one who keeps the peace while your dreams wait quietly in the corner. This is not a call to become cold. This is a call to become honest. Let me walk with you through 7 truths, 7 steps from being the nice girl to becoming a whole woman. Let me begin with the first truth slowly, honestly. The way life taught it to me, for a long time I believed that being nice was the same thing as being good. I thought if I was agreeable, if I smiled more, if I never upset anyone, the world would reward me with love, safety, and acceptance. So I learned to nod even when my heart disagreed. I learned to lower my voice so it wouldn't sound too strong. I learned to soften my opinions, wrap my truth in apologies, and present myself in ways that made others comfortable, even when I wasn't, and the world praised that version of me. They called it grace. They called it humility. They called it being easy to work with, but slowly, quietly, something inside me started to disappear. Because niceness, when it costs you your truth, is not goodness. It is fear dressed up as politeness. Goodness is honest. Goodness has weight. Goodness has a spine. I learned this when I realized how tired I was. Not physically tired, but soul tired. Tired of explaining myself softly. Tired of carrying other people's expectations on my back. Tired of being understood but never fully known. That exhaustion was my spirit trying to tell me something important. I was being kind to everyone except myself. Niceness avoids discomfort at all costs. It says yes to keep the peace. It swallows hurt to avoid conflict. It smiles while boundaries are crossed. And over time, that kind of niceness turns into quiet resentment. Not toward others, but toward yourself. You start asking, why don't they see me? Why don't they respect me? But the harder truth is this: people can only respect the version of you that you respect first. Goodness is different. Goodness can say no without guilt. Goodness can stand firm without cruelty. Goodness doesn't need to be loud, but it refuses to be dishonest. Being good doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring wisely. It means your kindness comes from strength, not fear of rejection. It means your compassion includes you in the equation. There was a moment in my life when I had to choose between being liked and being aligned. I knew that if I spoke my truth, some people would be uncomfortable. Some doors might close, some labels might be placed on me. But I also knew this: if I stayed silent, I would lose something far more valuable than approval. I would lose self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of every meaningful life. When you choose goodness over niceness, you stop negotiating with your values. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who benefit from you having none. You stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never meant to hold your full self. This doesn't make you harsh. It makes you clear. Clarity is kindness. Clarity saves time, energy, and heartbreak. It tells the world where you stand, so you don't keep getting pushed around, and the people who truly belong in your life, the ones who love you deeply and honestly, will not leave because you grew a backbone. They will respect you more for it. You see, faith teaches us something powerful. Truth spoken with love is never wrong. You are not here to be agreeable at the cost of your integrity. You are here to live truthfully, courageously, and with intention. So in 2026, don't aim to be the nicest person in the room. Aim to be the most honest one. Don't confuse silence with peace. Don't confuse people-pleasing with virtue. Choose goodness, choose the truth, choose the quiet strength of knowing who you are, even if it means disappointing someone else. Because the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable, that is the moment your life begins to stand tall. For a long time, I thought love meant access, unlimited access. I thought if I cared about someone, They should be able to reach me anytime, ask anything of me, lean on me endlessly. I believed that being available was the same thing as being valuable. So I answered every call. I fixed every problem. I showed up even when I was empty, especially when I was empty, and I told myself I was being loving. But slowly, that kind of love began to drain me. Not all at once. It happened quietly, in missed mornings with myself, in resentment I didn't want to admit, in the heaviness I carried into rooms that once excited me. I started feeling stretched thin, but I couldn't understand why, because on the outside I was doing everything right. The truth was simple but painful to accept. I had confused self-sacrifice with love. Boundaries are not rejection. Boundaries are instruction. Every time you say yes when your spirit is exhausted, you teach people that your limits don't matter. Every time you ignore your discomfort to keep someone else comfortable, you send a message, sometimes without words, that your needs are optional. And the world listens, not because it is cruel, but because it follows the rules we set. I learned this when I finally asked myself a hard question. If I don't protect my energy, who will? The answer was uncomfortable. No one. Boundaries are not walls built to keep people out. They are doors with locks. They allow you to choose who enters your life, how they enter, and how long they stay. They PR. Protect what is sacred. Your time, your peace, your purpose, your faith. At first, setting boundaries feels wrong, especially if you've been the nice girl for most of your life. You feel guilty. You rehearse explanations in your head. You worry people will think you've changed, and they might. But growth always looks like change to those who benefited from the old version of you. I remember the first time I said no without explaining myself. My heart raced. My voice almost shook. I waited for anger, for disappointment, for rejection, and some of it came. But something else came too, relief, a deep, grounding relief. Because for the first time, I had honored myself. That's when I understood this. Boundaries are a form of self-respect, and self-respect is the beginning of real love. When you respect yourself, you don't show up resentful. You don't give from obligation. You don't serve with bitterness in your heart. You give freely, joyfully from a place of fullness. And that kind of giving heals instead of drains. Faith teaches us order. Even the divine has boundaries. Day and night, rest and work, giving and receiving. Rest is not weakness. Limits are not failure, they are wisdom. When you begin to set boundaries, some people will push back. They will say you're distant. They will say you've changed. They might even say you're selfish. Let them talk. People who are used to crossing your lines will always be uncomfortable when you start drawing them. But here is the truth they don't tell you. The right people will rise to meet your boundaries. The wrong people will fall away. And both outcomes are a blessing. You are not meant to be everything to everyone. You are meant to be true to yourself and of service to the world in a way that is sustainable. Burnout is not a badge of honor. Exhaustion is not proof of love. In 2026, I want you to pause before every yes. Ask yourself, is this aligned with my values? Does this honor my energy? Am I giving from choice or from fear? And if the answer is no, let your no be gentle but firm. You don't owe access to anyone who disregards your peace. You don't owe explanations for protecting your soul. You don't owe guilt for choosing yourself. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about letting the right people in, without losing yourself in the process. And when you learn to protect your energy, something beautiful happens. Your confidence grows quieter, deeper, steadier. Your relationships become healthier. Your faith becomes stronger, and your life begins to feel like it finally belongs to you. There was a time when I believed my voice was something I had to earn, that I needed more experience, more validation, more approval before I was allowed to speak. So I waited. I listened. I was absorbed. I told myself I was being patient, being respectful, and being wise. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being labeled difficult, afraid of taking up too much space. So I stayed quiet in rooms where my ideas mattered. I smiled when something didn't sit right in my spirit. I let decisions be made without my input, even when I knew I could add value. And every time I chose silence over truth, something inside me learned a dangerous lesson. That my voice was optional, but your voice is never optional. I learned this the day I realized that silence doesn't protect you. It only delays the cost. Because what you don't say doesn't disappear, it settles. It settles in your body, in your breath, in your confidence. It shows up later as self-doubt, anxiety, and the quiet question that follows you home at night: why didn't I speak up? Finding your voice is not about being loud, it's about being honest. I remember the first time I spoke up in a room where I felt smaller than everyone else. My heart was racing, my palms were sweating, my voice wasn't steady, but it was mine. And when the words left my mouth, the room didn't fall apart. The ceiling didn't collapse. What changed was me. I realized that courage doesn't come after confidence. It comes before it. Your voice will shake. Let it. A shaking voice is not weakness. It is truth moving through fear. It is your soul stretching beyond comfort. Every person you admire learned to speak before they felt ready. Growth doesn't wait for perfect timing. It responds to brave action. As women especially, we are often taught to soften our words, to be careful, to be polite, to say things in ways that won't make others uncomfortable. But when you dilute your truth long enough, you forget its original flavor. You begin to doubt yourself. You start asking for permission to exist in spaces you've already earned. Faith tells us something powerful. You were given a voice for a reason. Not to echo the room, but to contribute to it. Not to shrink, but to stand. When you speak from integrity, you don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to perform. You simply state what you know to be true, and let the truth do the work. Some people will listen, some won't. But your responsibility is not to control the outcome. It's to honor your voice. Here's the secret no one tells you. The more you use your voice, the stronger it becomes. The fear doesn't disappear overnight, but it loses its power. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to walk into rooms differently. Your posture changes. Your presence shifts. People start responding, not because you're louder, but because you're grounded. And when someone tries to silence you, when they interrupt, dismiss, or minimize, remember this: being uncomfortable with your truth is not the same as you being wrong. Sometimes resistance is just a sign that you're touching something real. In 2026, I want you to practice speaking, even when your voice shakes. Say what needs to be said with clarity and kindness. Don't over-explain. Don't apologize for existing. Let your words come from a place of alignment, not approval-seeking. Because the world doesn't change when women whisper. It changes when they speak with conviction and compassion. Your voice is not too much, your voice is necessary. And the moment you choose to use it, you step into your power. For a long time, I measured my worth by how well I was received, by the smiles in the room, by the applause at the end, by the approval in people's eyes when I walked away. I told myself it was ambition, professionalism, and gratitude. But underneath it all, there was something else. A hunger to be liked. Approval is seductive. It feels warm, it feels safe, it feels like belonging, and slowly, without realizing it, you start shaping your life around it. You adjust your words so they land softly. You adjust your dreams so they don't threaten anyone. You adjust your boundaries so no one feels inconvenienced. And one day you wake up and realize you've been living a beautifully edited version of yourself, while the real you waits backstage. Chasing approval is exhausting because it never ends. There is always another opinion to manage, another expectation to meet, another version of yourself to perform. And the more you try to please everyone, the more you lose touch with the one person whose approval matters most, your own. I learned this when I finally stopped asking, "Do they like me?" and started asking, "Am I aligned?" Alignment feels different. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with silence. Sometimes it comes with distance. But it comes with peace. And peace is priceless. There was a moment when I made a decision I knew not everyone would understand. I felt the familiar pull to explain, to justify, to soften it so it would be easier for others to accept. And then I stopped. I asked myself, if I betray my intuition now, what will it cost me later? That question changed everything. Freedom begins when you accept this truth. Not everyone is meant to come with you. Some people are only assigned to certain seasons of your life. And when you outgrow a season, staying small to keep company is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. Faith teaches us detachment. It teaches us to do what is right, not what is popular. To walk with purpose, not applause. When you anchor your worth in something higher than public opinion, you stop being tossed around by every compliment and every criticism. Approval is a drug because it gives you a temporary high, but leaves you dependent. Freedom is the cure because it teaches you to stand steady, regardless of who's watching. Here's what no one tells you. The moment you stop performing, you attract the right people. The ones who see you clearly, the ones who respect your honesty, the ones who don't need you to be perfect to stay, and the ones who leave, they were never meant to walk your path. Let them go with grace. In 2026, I want you to make decisions from conviction, not validation. Do the work even when no one claps. Speak the truth even when it costs you comfort. Choose alignment over approval. Even when it feels lonely at first, loneliness fades. Regret doesn't. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need consensus to be courageous. You don't need applause to be enough. When you live from freedom, your confidence becomes unshakable, not because everyone agrees with you, but because you agree with yourself, and that kind of confidence changes everything. Growth is uncomfortable, not because something is wrong, but because something is changing. For years, I believed that if something felt hard, I must be going the wrong way. I thought peace meant ease. I thought alignment meant comfort. So whenever things felt tense, awkward, lonely, or uncertain, I questioned myself. I slowed down. I softened my steps. I wondered if I should turn back, but life taught me differently. Every meaningful transformation I've ever experienced arrived wrapped in discomfort, not chaos, but friction. The kind that stretches you, the kind that asks you to shed an old skin before you step into a new one. Discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is information. The moment you stop being the nice girl, you start feeling it immediately. People don't respond the same way. Conversations shift. Silence enters where praise once lived. And if you're not prepared, you'll mistake that discomfort for failure. It's not. It's growth asking you to stay. I remember walking into seasons where I felt misunderstood, where I stood alone in decisions that once would have been crowd pleasers. My old instinct was to retreat, to smooth things over, to make myself palatable again. But something deeper asked me to remain still, to breathe through the discomfort, to trust that becoming who I was meant to be would require temporary unease. And it did. Discomfort strips away illusion. It shows you who you are without applause. It reveals whether your values are negotiable or anchored. It teaches you to stand in rooms where you're not validated and still remain grounded. Faith reminds us that refinement is rarely gentle. Growth happens in the wilderness before it arrives at the promised land. There is always a stretch between what was and what will be. And that stretch is uncomfortable by design. When you avoid discomfort, you choose stagnation. You choose familiarity over fulfillment. You choose the safety of who you were over the possibility of who you could become. Here's the truth. Comfort keeps you small. It key. P.S. You agreeable. It keeps you predictable. Growth demands courage. The courage to be misunderstood. The courage to be alone sometimes. The courage to keep walking even when the path isn't applauded. In 2026, you will feel moments where everything in you wants to retreat back to the old version of yourself. The nice girl, the pleaser, the one who made life easy for everyone else. And in those moments, I want you to pause and ask, is this discomfort destroying me or is it developing me? The answer will change your life. Discomfort doesn't last forever. It passes, it softens, it transforms into strength. But if you run from it, it will follow you, showing up again and again until you learn the lesson it came to teach. You don't grow by being certain. You grow by being willing. Willing to look foolish before you look wise. Willing to stand alone before you stand tall. Willing to be uncomfortable before you become unstoppable. Stay with the process. Stay with the tension. Stay with the becoming. Because on the other side of discomfort is clarity. And on the other side of clarity is a life that finally fits the woman you're becoming. I grew up believing that being a good woman meant giving endlessly. Giving time, giving energy, giving forgiveness, giving understanding, even when it hurt, even when it emptied me. I was taught that sacrifice was noble, that putting myself last was strength, that exhaustion was proof of devotion. So I gave, and I gave, and I gave some more. Until one day I realized I was serving everyone, except myself. Service without self-respect is not generosity. It is slow erosion. When you don't honor yourself, your giving begins to carry resentment. You smile, but your heart is heavy. You help, but you feel unseen. You show up, but something inside you is quietly keeping score. And that is not the kind of service that heals. That is the kind that drains. I learned this when I reached a point where my body was present, but my spirit was tired. I was doing all the right things, supporting, encouraging, carrying others, but I felt disconnected from joy. That's when I had to face a hard truth. I was pouring from an empty cup and calling it love. But an empty cup has nothing left to give. Self-respect changes the quality of your service. When you honor your limits, your yes becomes powerful. When you protect your energy, your generosity becomes intentional. When you stop giving to prove your worth, your giving becomes pure. True service comes from overflow, not obligation. Faith teaches us balance. Even the divine rested. Even the greatest acts of service were preceded by moments of solitude, renewal, and prayer. You are not meant to be endlessly available. You are meant to be deeply aligned. When you respect yourself, you stop rescuing people who refuse to save themselves. You stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours. You stop confusing guilt with duty. And in that space, something beautiful happens. You begin to serve from love, not fear. There were moments when I had to step back, when I had to say, I can't do this right now. And yes, some people were disappointed. Some questioned my intentions. Some didn't understand. But what they didn't see was the quiet strength it took to choose sustainability over approval. You cannot heal the world by breaking yourself. In 2026, I want you to redefine what it means to be giving. Let your service come from wholeness. Let your kindness be supported by boundaries. Let your compassion include your own heart. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose yourself without guilt. When you give from self-respect, your energy shifts. People feel it. Your presence becomes grounded. Your words carry weight. Your help becomes transformative. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing it with intention. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. The people who truly value you do not want you exhausted. They want you well. They want you whole. They want you standing strong, not slowly disappearing in the name of being good. Service is powerful, but only when it flows from a place of dignity. Honor yourself. Protect your spirit. And then give, not because you feel obligated, but because you are overflowing with purpose. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be true. For a long time, I believed those two things could live side by side, that I could be completely honest and universally accepted. But life gently and sometimes painfully corrected me. Truth has a way of revealing who is with you for who you are, and who was only comfortable with who you pretended to be. Choosing truth will cost you something. It may cost you approval. It may cost you familiarity. It may cost you relationships that were built on your silence. But what it gives you in return is priceless. Integrity, peace, and a life that feels like your own. I remember standing at a crossroads where I knew that the next step would change how I was seen. The easy road was to stay agreeable, to keep the image intact, to remain the version of myself that never made waves. The harder road was to speak honestly, live openly, and stand in alignment, even if it meant standing alone for a while. I chose the harder road, not because it was comfortable, but because it was true, and truth has a weight to it, gravity. When you live in it, your life stops feeling fragmented. You no longer perform different versions of yourself for different rooms. You become whole. And wholeness is magnetic. Faith teaches us that truth is not meant to be negotiated. It is meant to be lived. When you stand in truth, you stand with something higher than public opinion. You stand with purpose. You stand with God. Not everyone will celebrate your honesty. Some will misunderstand it. Some will resist it. Some will walk away. Let them. The ones who are meant to walk with you will recognize your truth and meet you there. In 2026, I want you to stop asking, will they like me? Start asking, am I being faithful to who I am becoming? Because every time you choose truth over politeness, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you honor your values over validation, you step deeper into your calling. And every time you stand firm in who you are, you give others permission to do the same. This is not about being harsh. This is not about being unkind. This is about being real. The world does not need another woman who is easy to like but hard to know. It needs women who are anchored in truth, guided by faith, and unafraid to live out loud. So stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for your strength. Stop diluting your truth to make it easier to swallow. You don't need permission to shine. You don't need approval to be powerful. You don't need applause to know your worth. Don't just dream. Wake up and make it real. The world will try to define you. Rewrite the definition yourself. Every setback is just a setup for your next big rise. And remember this, always, when you live in truth, you walk in freedom. And when you walk in freedom, you become unstoppable. Then let me lift the energy one last time, so it lands not just in your mind, but in your bones. Take a breath with me. Because if you've listened this far, it's not by accident. Something in you is ready. Ready to stop shrinking. Ready to stop negotiating with your worth. Ready to stop being the version of yourself that survives and become the woman who leads her own life. You've learned that kindness without truth is not virtue. You've learned that boundaries are not rejection, they are self-respect. You've learned that your voice matters, even when it shakes. You've learned that approval is fleeting, but alignment is forever. You've learned that discomfort is not a warning sign, it's a doorway. You've learned that service must come from wholeness, not depletion. And finally, you've learned that truth will cost you something. but living without it will cost you everything. This is the moment where all of that knowledge turns into a decision. Because insight without action is just comfort disguised as wisdom. There will be days in 2026 when it feels easier to go back, easier to smile instead of speak, easier to say yes instead of stand firm, easier to be liked instead of be honest. And in those moments, I want you to remember this feeling, this clarity, this quiet strength rising in your chest right now. You are not difficult. You are not too much. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for truth. You're asking for alignment. You're asking for a life that doesn't require you to disappear to be accepted. And that is a sacred ask. Stand tall when your old patterns call you back. Stand grounded when your past tries to pull you down. Stand faithful when fear whispers that you'll be alone. Because you won't be. You'll be supported by something stronger than approval. You'll be guided by purpose. You'll be anchored in faith. And when you walk in that alignment, you don't just change your life, you change the energy of every room you enter. So don't enter 2026 as the nice girl who hopes to be chosen. Enter as the woman who chooses herself, chooses truth over comfort, chooses courage over silence, chooses faith over fear. Don't just dream, wake up and make it real. The world will try to define you. Rewrite the definition yourself. Every setback is just a setup for your next big rise. You don't need permission to shine. Own your light, stand in your truth, and walk forward unapologetically. And let me leave you with this, something timeless, something rooted deeper than fear, deeper than opinion, deeper than the noise of the world. You were not created to live a life of apology. You were created with intention, with strength, with purpose placed inside. You long before anyone had an opinion about you. When you choose truth, you are never alone. When you choose integrity, you are always guided. And when you choose faith over fear, the path may not be easy, but it will always be right. Walk forward knowing this, what is meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself to receive it. The doors that belong to you will open when you stand in alignment, not when you beg for approval. And the life designed for you will meet you at the exact moment you decide to stop shrinking and start trusting. So rise without guilt, stand without apology, speak without fear. Because when you walk in truth, you walk in light, and when you walk in light, you become a blessing, not just to yourself, but to the world. Go live it, faithfully, boldly, now.